Looking good, Italian Joe.
I'm feeling good, Tommy Boy. It's been more than a minute. I would say it's been several minutes.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been five or six. It's been since Q4 2024. How the heck are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. It was really good catching up with you a couple weeks back in a random Greensboro parking lot, just seeing how life was going and catching up with you. And for those who haven't viewed online or watched our YouTube clips, Tommy Boy and I got together and he made a pretty sweet little thing that's over my shoulder over here. It's a ruck stand. So if anybody's looking, we don't normally push any kind of products on here. So I'm not going to push products, but I'm going to say, if you want something that looks really cool to put your ruck and your plates and everything in it, Tommy Boy's got a connection, and that connection is, well, his hands. So talk to TV about it. It's a pretty sweet thing. Tommy Boy, since we last spoke, you had one of your shorties go off and start at a new college. How's that going?
Right. He's crushing it. It's great to stand back after investing everything into a 2.0 and watching them do their own thing. Really proud of her for not only navigating a negative experience to begin with, but standing up for herself, advocating all the things that we taught her, and saying, "I got this," and she sure did. So she found herself up in Virginia in the Danville area, and is thriving at Avery University. And I could not be more proud of the work that she put in for herself. So yeah, I
Fantastic.
appreciate you asking. I feel like there's been a lot going on between you and me. You've landed in a great space in your Mammon and your D2X, and I know I've been almost 2 years now in mine. It feels good, and I can see a difference in your face, my friend. It makes a big difference to look at your buddy and know that he's in a better spot and can better serve his family.
You know, the great thing about F3, and we talk about it all the time, is we get to share our successes and we get to shoulder each other's burdens. And when things are going really well, it's really nice to have someone to celebrate because it doubles its impact. And when things are
Yeah.
going poorly, it's nice to have somebody to lean on because it halves that burden. So F3 does that for me. Brother, you do that for me, and it's an honor. So, yes, I'm feeling good right now. You're looking good, our typical looking good, feeling good. But for those who haven't tuned in a while, and that would be us as well, this has been like 3 or 4 months in the making. It's F3 business, and I'm going to toss it over to our first guest. We have two on the line. We'll start off with Terminator. I got to know how long you've been doing F3. How did you get that sweet name? And what is F3 business, home region, all that kind of stuff? And then you toss it over to Mr. Smooth after that.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Thank you guys for having us. F3 Terminator, Jacksonville region. Yeah, I got the name. My brother EH'd me in Alpharetta, Georgia, and I had no clue what F3 was. And I'm like, we're up really early. It's really, really cold. It was November of 2018. It was wet, kind of rainy. And we get to COT at the end. Again, I have no idea what I've just done. We're picking up like rocks out of a creek. And I'm like, dude, what are you in? What is this? And I get to the end, and one of my companies is a pest control company. So one of the guys said exterminator, and then somebody said Terminator. And my brother's like, dude, roll with that. You're going to stick with that one. That's a good one. And so that's how it came about. And then, yeah, the F3B kind of origin story, I'll let Ben kind of talk about that. But it's just been amazing. It's been 2 years now, and it's been going really well.
Fantastic. Ben, Mr. Smooth, another sweet name. Tommy Boy, you and I kind of got the hose deal. I mean, he's Terminator and Mr. Smooth, but yeah, Ben, Mr. Smooth, tell us how you got the name, how long you've been doing F3.
I don't know, Tommy Boy and Italian Job. Those are pretty sweet names too.
I mean, they are pretty decent movies. They are at the top of my list.
Yeah,
So.
definitely a similar name.
I like it. No, I was very like Terminator. I was very fortunate that he invited me out and he H'd me. And when I told the story about how I met my wife and what I said to her to get her to smile and allow me to keep talking to her, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, that was pretty smooth." And so somebody, after a couple different names, someone said, "Well, how about Mr. Smooth?" And similar to Terminator, he said, "Yep, my brother was good to me, and he grabbed up on a good name, so I'm gonna pay it forward and go ahead and accept that name for Ben, Mr. Smooth." So I feel thankful to him in many ways, as he's a really good friend of mine, but also that it was allowed them to keep a good name for me.
Tommy Boy, I know you're wondering, what was it? Mr. Smooth, what was it that you said? For our younger listeners who are not yet married, what was the move? What was the smooth talking that you did? Take some notes, TV, just in case we need to tell our boys this.
Well, the interesting part of that is, let's say the 10th. So yesterday was the 9th. Yesterday was 22 years to the day that I met my wife. And it was also my mom's birthday as well. So I think God works in mysterious ways, and I don't think that was coincidence. But I was at a restaurant. It was a diner, and saw her walk by, and I overheard her talking. Of course, I wasn't eavesdropping at all, but overheard her talking about some guys on the soccer team. We went to Towson University in Maryland. And I played football there, and her brothers, it turns out, were on the soccer team. Well, when she was saying their names, I knew them, but I didn't know her, and I didn't know she existed. And I said, thinking I was being slick when she walked back by, I was like, "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear you said Steve and Mike." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "How do you know those guys?" Kind of thinking like, well, they're my boys. Like, how do you know them? And she goes, "Well, they're my brothers." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, that makes sense." And she's like, "What makes sense?" And I said, "Well, if I had a sister that looked as good as you, I wouldn't exactly be broadcasting that all over campus either." And she gave me the
That's pretty smooth. That's pretty smooth for a Towson
That's a lot
Tiger.
better than being in a diner and saying, "How do you like your eggs in the morning?" Scrambled.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Well done.
Should have gone
Definitely
with that,
Mr.
right?
Smooth. Definitely Mr. Smooth.
Well, smooth operator.
I'm going to cue you up nicely, because one of the reasons that Ajay and I have been incognito and pretty much absent for a whole quarter here is because we have been navigating what life looks like for both of us through transitions and changes. And one of those is work. About 2 years ago, I was going through a very similar space as well. And one of the times that I really would allow myself the space to decompress and vent was ahead of these podcasts. IJ and I would connect. "How are you?" Before we go live, and I would dump, and he would dump, and we'd share our frustrations with things. And it's like the whole time we had this tool right in front of our faces, which was the power of the F3 network. And then right about I think the middle of your transitional journey, IJ, was when these conversations started with F3B. And so I'd love for you guys to kind of take the listener through that journey of how it started in your region. What was the why that you were trying to answer at that time?
Bri, or Terminator, I'll start, and by all means jump in. But when it really wasn't this vision of, in the very beginning, of how can we get a networking, or how can we get a networking group? It really was two guys that are buddies getting to know each other even better, grabbing a cup of coffee in our community. And we're talking about business, life, the 3 Fs of F3, as part of that conversation. And I asked him a simple question. I said, I'm really enjoying getting to know you better, getting to know about your companies. There's definitely aspects of your companies that my family could utilize some services that your companies do. And one of his companies, I'm a partner in, and do, from a business standpoint, do some work with the company. But it was really that. And as we were talking and getting to know about what he does for a living, I already knew the man, that he was a great man. I already knew that he was in great shape because of how good he does in the workouts. So the next step was getting to know him from that regard. And I just said, does F3 have anything? I don't really know what a lot of the men that I work out with and have gotten to know as men and fathers and husbands, and some men of faith as well. I don't know what they do for a living, because you're working out in the gloom together, but work and talking shop, you go to get away from some of that kind of stuff when you go work out. And he said, I'm really not sure. But so just that question, he and I started brainstorming a little bit about what that could look like, and talking with the Nantan in our area at the time, and sharing some initial thoughts without really a game plan per se of what it would look like or could look at like, but really just throwing some ideas out there between the two of us, and then presenting that to the Nantan. And that's part of the birth of it, but it was more organic, much like F3 is, of just getting, two like-minded men together that have a lot in common or building on their friendship. And then during that discussion came what ended up turning into F3 business.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're in the gloom and you're working out, okay, he's a doctor, he's a lawyer, he's a business owner, and you talk surface level things, but what we started to realize was that, like, if we want to go a little bit deeper, how do we do that? And in the gloom, yeah, we do cafeteria in the parking lot, and we have Q stores on Tuesdays in the morning, but sometimes those don't necessarily facilitate a deeper conversation specifically in your profession. And so we're like, look, can you imagine if we could create something inside of an F2 that would bring these guys together, get them to show up, an hour and a half after a workout, get dressed, come out there, sit with us, let us just facilitate. By no means do we know everything. We're trying to just lay it out there and get the group together. And then just mastermind, take a little nugget here and there. And that's what we started to see that happen. Like, we created our own dedicated Slack channel. When someone loses their job, they can post a resume there. If someone has a question, generally speaking, about the economy or whatever, it's just a place you can go to ask that question. Whereas on the first F or whatever, you may be a little more shy to do. So we just really wanted to create just a kind of a, don't worry about it, show up. You can be unemployed. You can be a Fortune 500 CEO and anywhere in between. And a lot of those type guys do show up. We've had pro athletes. We've had big time successful business people. We've had guys that are unemployed, guys that are trying to move into the country. We've had students. We've seen it all. Mm-hmm. And we try to make it where it's just not intimidating. Show up in your workout clothes, show up in a suit or anywhere in between as far as that goes as well. But just show up. It's kind of like church, man. Just show up, get there. And then when you get there, see what happens. And like, it's been 2 years. I mean, that first meeting was February of 23, and we just celebrated 2 years, man. So it's going well. We had that very first meeting, we had 24 guys in attendance. We're usually probably 12 to 25-ish every meeting. Mm-hmm. And that's just, we don't promote it too much. We throw it out there and we mention it at COT, especially as we get closer. But guys, you see the regulars show up, and then we actually get a good bit of new people as well. Like, what is F3B again? It may have taken a year before it sunk in, or maybe they heard someone had a good experience there, and they're like, you know what, at the next one, I'm coming. I've had guys who are not in F3, and I'm sure Ben's the same way. Mr. Smooth is the same way, where they message me and they're like, hey, what is this? Because we take a picture every time, we get it out there so people know what we're doing, and that gets it out there, and they message and they say, look, I'm not part of F3, can I come? And because usually we put in there, like, it's open to all men. And you get them in that way, and then, funny enough, you can then EH them over to the physical part, to the workout part.
So how often do you guys get together, and where do you get together?
Yeah, it's a monthly thing. We started out monthly at the very beginning, and that's how we still are. Now, we usually take a break in the summer for a month or so, just depending. But we've been pretty much every month since 2 years ago. And we meet at the Plantation Beach Club. It's a Ponte Vedra beach club, not too far from us. And so we got the Atlantic Ocean in the background, and we go for an hour. We respect the guy's time. Starts at 8:30 in the morning and ends an hour later. And if they want to stick around afterward, they can. We have coffee there, and we encourage them to exchange numbers and go have a one-on-one.
Terminator, is this the same? Is this the same beach club where during the original Kraken, everyone disappeared and went and, like, I turned around and no one was there. Everyone had hopped on bikes or something. Everyone was gone, just gone. I think they went and took showers or went to use the restroom or something, and then we took off. I think it's the same one right there on the beach, if I'm not mistaken.
It could have been. There's the Ponte Vedra Inn and Club as well, and then I'm on down south a little more, Plantation Beach Club, but you're probably one of those two for sure.
Very cool. What were you saying, TB? I didn't mean to step on you, brother.
Well, good. Before we went live, we were kind of talking about, at least for me, one of the more powerful EHing tools is to talk about the network of men that somebody I'm working on will get to meet if they come out and suffer through workouts, right? And you hinted at it as well, too, Terminator. The flip side of that also, I think, is important, and Mr. Smooth, you hit on it, was the opportunity to go a little bit deeper than, mile 3 of a 3 mile parade of horribles during a workout, and you find out the guy next to you has experience in something that you're experiencing in your Mammon, right? And I've heard many a conversation of, man, I keep hitting this brick wall in my work, and the other guy's trying to answer the question and not spill Merlot at the same time. What sort of conversations have you seen, or let me back up a higher level even. What patterns have you seen that F3 business continues to serve for the men who, like you said, show up?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things, and to piggyback on what Terminator was saying earlier too, is by men not feeling that it's a leads based meeting, or they have to bring referrals, or that there's any kind of pressure. If, like, to his point, if guys were coming straight from a workout or a work meeting, and we've had guys come in a suit, we've had guys come in what looked like workout attire. So it's more, like he said, to show up. And what's been interesting, and I hope I'm somewhat answering your question. If I'm not fully, I can elaborate. But what's been interesting is every so often, usually every third meeting, sometimes we might mix another one in there, but we'll have one that we call open forum, where literally we just say, come out. There's no topic today, because typically we'll have a topic. We'll have an author. We have actually two authors lined up coming up speaking about different topics. But we had one of our F3 brothers, successful business owner here in town, talk about time management. We had one that's a successful attorney in town talk about the importance of liability and auto insurance and why you should carry it. And not just, and the nice thing about him being an attorney versus someone who's in sales is he's coming from a high level of how important liability in life is, and especially living in Florida with car insurance and uninsured motor vehicle, uninsured motorists and whatnot. So, but it was a topic, that guys were interested in. And during the open forum, what ends up happening is every man is able to introduce what it is they do for a living, 30 seconds to a minute, little commercial, say their F3 name, all that good stuff. But then we'll usually say to them, if you have a topic that you'd like to see in a future meeting, if you want to present a topic that you think would be valuable, that's really our brainstorming session. And then when it gets quiet, usually Terminator does a great job of lobbing in a question. And it might be something like that, Tommy Boyd, where he'll say, for those of you who are either business owners here or not, don't have to be, what is something that you'd say is a challenge at the moment that you're willing to share, or that you're willing to be vulnerable about? And it's really amazing when you get a group of 12 to 25 like-minded men together, that someone breaks the ice a little bit, just talks a little. Brian and I usually get up and do just the intro and whatnot. And then our goal is obviously to turn this thing over, that we're all free to lead and, let other men, run with the meeting and all of that. And a lot of times we do when we have, speakers that are F3 brothers. So it's really amazing what comes out of that, because it'll start that way. It'll start with, well, here's what I'm struggling with. And then other guys will jump in and talk and relate. And some might say, well, this is what I did in that situation that helped. But what ends up happening, and I know it happened on this last meeting, and Terminator, please jump in as well, is to elaborate, is right around like 45 minutes into the meeting, you get a lot of especially open forums, you get a lot of good discussion, but then a man will usually just add something that's really vulnerable that they're struggling with. And it might not be business related. It might just be like, guys, I'm dealing with this, or I'm dealing with that, or, I lost my job, and then guys will jump in, right. And rally around that man and say, well, here's what I did in that situation, or this is what, I'd suggest there. And then at the end, we always recommend guys to continue to stick around and talk some more. We really try to honor the 1 hour, to respect everyone's time, to wrap up by that 1 hour mark. But we also say, if you guys want to stick around, and what Terminator is too humble to tell you is that where we go is called the Plantation Beach Club, and it's part of his community. He has access to this beautiful beach club. And as a result, he's kind enough to let us use his neighborhood's facility to have these meetings. And we're literally on the beach. We have the Atlantic Ocean in our backdrop. So it's really beautiful. And what he definitely won't tell you is that he brings the coffee. He brews the coffee. He brings all the cups and the sugar and the creamers and all of that. He brings the tripod for the picture. I mean, this man he gets the operations side and gets all the things coordinated with F3B, and it wouldn't run without him. And I could brag about the guy forever, but he's become one of my best buds down here. And we're really fortunate that we have that location because of him. But part of the vulnerability of just the men, and then sometimes another topic will spark from that, or sometimes guys will kind of pull one another aside after the meeting, and they're grabbing coffee or they're talking shop. or they're sharing ideas. So it goes beyond the 1 hour, which was a lot of our vision of whether it goes beyond the 1 hour right there, or guys are exchanging cell phone numbers saying, hey man, let's grab coffee. I'd like to learn more about that topic from you.
Ben, I'll
Yeah, and that
definitely
really
do that
just
prearranged
yeah,
amount after this, that all those nice things you said. Sorry, Tommy boy, go ahead. Yeah.
Checks in the
no, I
mail.
was just gonna say, yeah, right. I was just gonna
It's
say,
all
Terminator,
true.
we're gonna put your
It's
home
all
cell
true.
phone number out there so guys can call you to plan their meetings.
It's all
Uh,
true.
Too kind.
No, but you hit
Got
the
a
nail
lot.
on the head, right? Like we hard start and hard stop our workouts, and the intention is that we're not over when 8 o'clock hits on a Saturday or 6:15 hits on a weekday, right? That's the motivator, and that's the next step, right? If the workout is the magnet, the next step is that glue, right? And it's up to the guys to take control because again, they're free to lead. So if you want to reach out to a dude, get connected with that dude. If you overheard something that inspired you and you want to learn more, raise your hand. You got to put yourself out there. I'm going to keep saying it. You got to show up, right? And that's kind of the beauty of this organization that we're in is that we're not tethered or bound by rules. We have some core principles, and beyond that, things like that F3B can survive and thrive. They're not made to be members only kind of things. It's like we want you to show up, we want you to get involved, and this is yet another way to expand beyond the gloom. And I dig that you guys have made this happen and created these spaces where dudes who are already hard charging can continue to do so, and guys who have maybe stumbled or just need a helping hand can find that too, and then everything in between those two bookends.
Yeah, I want to, and my good friend Mr. Smooth has hit the nail on the head on F3B. But I want to give two examples of meetings. You know, Ben did a great job as well, giving some examples. But I want to give a couple that I think of, including the best example I've ever heard, and I'll save that one for a second. But you know, sometimes at these meetings, you see guys and they're there, and maybe you know their story, maybe you don't, but you can see in their eyes they're lost. You know, they're concerned. They're, whether it be unemployed or whether it be something's going on, and maybe they'll share that time and maybe they won't. But what we hope happens is they continue to come back. And what we're seeing is that is happening. I remember in particular one guy, and I'm not going to name any names, but one guy was kind enough to share a little bit, and he talked about how his work-life balance, if you want to call it that, was so far out of whack for so many years. I mean, I pretty much brought him and a lot of other people to tears. The fact that, you know, he's missed out on these opportunities. And one thing, we could all go make more money, but we're not getting time back. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, Mr. Smooth and I both talk about all the time. Like, don't miss the dance recital. Don't miss the soccer game. We can do this work stuff later, man. It'll be there. It's going to be there. But do not miss those important things in life. And we kind of come in with that approach. So that example to me, when that gentleman was kind enough to share that he's gotten over that and he's moving forward now, but that he does regret it. There's not much he can do about the past, but he can move forward positively, and he is. I thought that was pretty amazing. And the other one is a guy sitting right here right now, Mr. Smooth, man. He talk about, you know, he's one of the most humble people I've ever met. He's a wealth manager, and I'd rather him tell the story if he's interested, but he brought the house down, and I say this in a good way, on a very tragic but positive ending story on one of his clients that tragically passed away. But what he did and his team did to come there and lift those people up, and how important, like we talk about business and all the things we do, and it can be transactional in some cases, but humans are involved in all these businesses. And when you take a step back and zoom out a little bit and realize that all the things we're doing, whether it's goods and services, you know, products, whatever the thing is, intellectual, whatever it is, you're doing it for other human beings. And I've never seen a better example than Mr. Smooth gave. And like I said, it's up to him whether he shares some of that, but it was the most powerful. It brought down, I wish it was on video. It wasn't. It was an incredible share. And that's what we get. That's what we get out of those kind of meetings. And like Mr. Smooth said, a lot of times they got to get loosened up, get a halfway in or 3/4 in, and then that real stuff starts coming out. So we love those open forums. We get excited about our guests too, and our guests are always amazing. When we say guests, there's a lot of outside guests we have, but there's also a lot of F3 guys that step up, like Mr. Smooth said, and they tell us about their profession, and they don't really care. They're not trying to earn our business. If we want to use them for whatever they're doing, great. They are truly just sharing. They are truly just giving that information away. And man, you look over, everybody's taking notes on paper and on their phones. It's just a great, great thing.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Smooth, what kind of What kind of success stories have you seen? Has a guy come in and said, I lost my job, and someone said, you know what, brother, you mentioned it before we hit record. You know a man's character because you work out with him in the morning. You know that this is a solid dude. And when it comes time for hiring somebody, you want somebody you can trust. And how do you form trust? A lot of times it's through sweat, and sometimes it's through pain and suffering. And sometimes we get that early mornings. And so when someone says, can you vouch for this guy? He's my brother. 100%. Have you seen that? Has that come to fruition in your home region where a guy has needed something and another guy stepped forward and said, I got you, brother?
Yes. And to piggyback on Terminator, without naming specific names, I can think of someone that is close to both of us that was in a stage of career of retirement, selling his business, and newly moved here, and he was coming out in the gloom. Terminator EH'd him, brought him in, and got to know the guys. And he actually told me the other day that after being here for a little bit, this was before F3, but there were some times where he considered moving back to where they lived before, of just not feeling that camaraderie and that friendships that he had where they moved from. And he said that coming out to the workouts and being around the guys and spending more and more time with Terminator and other F3 guys, he really felt like he was part of a brotherhood. And as a matter of fact, one of our F3 brothers employed him to do some work with this company that he wasn't necessarily like, I need a job. It was more like, hey, I want to help out an F3 brother and spend some time with a guy that I like a lot already, and getting to know him even better. He has a need. I can fulfill that need. And it's really cool to hear. I mean, that's one example. I definitely have more, but I feel like even bigger than F3 as an organization. I moved to Florida 4.5 years ago, and it single-handedly, I always tell people, I'm like, my best friends in Florida and everything that's come out of it since joining it has all been nothing but positive. And my best buds are all F3 guys. And I feel like those are the most like-minded group of men that I've ever been around, including I grew up in Virginia, and I lived in Maryland and went to college there and met my wife there, but including those two states, and which I love, and I have good friends in both states. But it's being down here around F3, it's different. And until you experience it and go through it, you really don't know that even though the fitness is listed first, it's really the fellowship and the faith and just the friendships that you build. That's the magic sauce of this organization. So, like Brian said earlier, just showing up to these F3B meetings, I feel like, in my opinion, just from what I've seen, I feel like even though it's only once a month, I feel like there's definitely some guys that have built even closer friendships from staying after and talking after these networking meetings than they had through the workouts. Because usually when we wrap up a workout, we're heading home, we're helping our M get the kids ready, getting ready for work, other things that we have going on in the morning. Where when guys block out an hour, most of them block out probably more like an hour and a half to 2 hours, so that they give a little bit of bookend on either side, a little bit early and a little bit after, to stay after and talk, and whether they want to network or whether they just want to get to know some other F3 guys a little bit better than they have time to do in the gloom. And the other thing I'll say about F3B is it is spread where it's not just 2 or 3. Like most guys go to like 2 or 3 different packs and work out and bounce between 2 or 3. But this expands, some guys, if they're in town visiting and show up because they know somebody that invites them, guys that are, 30, 40 minutes away to come to the meeting, not just guys that are, 10, 15 minutes away from the nearest, place to work out, nearest pack to work out. These are men that are coming, making a half hour to 45-minute drive just to come to these meetings. And that's nice to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. The F3 Nation, we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of you guys who have done different things throughout and gave us the opportunity to have these kind of meetings, like a Q Source. And we've had a standing Q Source meeting for 5 years. And it's a great chilled lock and a great group. And, so nationally, obviously what the nation is doing is just, I can't say enough good things about it. I also think our region here in Jacksonville is just, it's incredible what we have going on. And again, we're standing on the shoulders of former Nantan, Saigon Sam, and Left Turn, and our current one, Hat Trick, and so many guys. I could go on and on and on who haven't been Nantans yet, that are just probably, they don't realize yet, in line to be Nantans. We are so blessed with just the talent. And I would say, when I say talent, I don't mean like they're good at, you know, their job or good at sports. They might be fine, whatever. I just mean like they're just talented at being a human being, man. They're just good guys. And the cool thing about F3 is you get that when you travel and you show up at other regions and you show up at other AOs. You see the same thing. So we're just standing on the shoulders of everybody else, of all you guys that have already done really cool things that are different than just the workout. And so we're just grateful for the opportunity. I would say that to the guy listening and wherever, F3 Nation, and he's like, you know what, I want to spark this. I don't know how to do it. It seems overwhelming. I don't have, you know, what kind of documents do you guys use? And I don't have a beach club to use. And I don't, you can, let me just clarify this. It's been 2 years, so we've improved on a lot of stuff. The very first document we'll share with you, it is a one-pager. It's really just, hi, introduction, and who are we, and like very simplistic. I would say the number one thing to do is just do it. If there's 2 guys, 3 guys at first, it doesn't matter. Just keep doing it and stay consistent. Come up with a topic. You don't have to make it your part-time job. Get it on the calendar, mention it at COT, put it in Slack, take a picture at the end so you promote it the next, you know, for the next month, and that's it. That's really all you got to do. I mean, it's really not that overly complicated. You can meet at an AO, you can meet, you know, anywhere. It doesn't really matter. We don't, you know, we try to meet places where nobody has to pay anything. We want to, again, stay with the F3 model. You show up, you share, you mastermind. Again, if you think like BNI and you think networking and you think business cards, in our opinion, this is not that.
Got it.
It's a million miles from that. This is getting to know someone else on a personal level. And by the way, let's go a little deeper into what you do professionally. Oh, cool. I didn't know you did that. I needed that service. Perfect. Like Mr. Smooth says, he couldn't be kinder. I mean, he uses multiple, he's a customer of mine in multiple of my businesses. I'm incredibly grateful. Any chance I get to refer people to him, I do. So like, it's just a cool thing that you don't even realize it. You just do it. Like, oh yeah, okay, who's the wealth manager? Who does this? Who does that? Oh yeah, boom, 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 boom. And it's just as simple as that. And we don't have to overthink it, and we don't have to overcomplicate it. And honestly, when we leave there, at least I do, you just feel you have a sense of fulfillment. It was fun. There was no pressure. Everybody seems to be on a high. Maybe it was just the coffee, but I'm thinking it was the combination of the coffee and the great conversations. And that's it. So don't be overwhelmed. If you want to start it, it's not that hard. Reach out to us. We'll help in any way we can.
Tommy Boyle, make sure we get some documentation in the show notes so guys, you can tune in and find some of that information. I think the concept here is just keep it simple, right? It's, you know, anytime that you have to explain a workout when you're leading a workout that requires a PowerPoint presentation and maybe an Excel spreadsheet, maybe you're overcomplicating things. So let's just get a group together, a couple guys, maybe a cup of coffee, have some conversation about a little bit outside the gloom. You know, let's talk about our families a little bit. Let's talk about our work. You know, let's be honest. When you meet somebody for the first time, you tend to ask, so what do you do for a living? And it's surface level. You don't really care, but it just feels like the right polite thing to do. But once you get to know a guy, you truly care about who he is, what he does, who his family is, what makes him happy, you know, what makes him click, what are the challenges that you can push him on. And this is a great opportunity for you to do just that. Get to know the guy a little bit better. It's a blessing each and every day when you get to see your buddies. I have the honor and privilege every morning of getting hugs from my friends every single day. And most men don't have that. We do. All 4 of us on this call, we have it. We can go anywhere in the world almost and meet somebody we haven't met before, but he feels like you've known him forever because he's just one of us, one of the guys who is trying to get better. And he's trying to be a better husband, a better father, a better coworker, a better boss, a better neighbor, a better member of his community. And how do you get better at these things? You hang out with guys just like that. So, hey, Mr. Smooth, how about you land the plane on it? Tommy Boy, his audio has cut out. So Tommy Boy will probably splice in something really saucy on the back end. But Mr. Smooth, how about you land the plane? Anything you want to, closing thoughts for F3B?
You hit the nail on the head. I would say keep it simple. Focus on some of the things that Terminator and I have talked about today, that this isn't, you don't need a bunch of legal documents. You don't need anything other than just a group of like-minded guys that have well intentions and are not afraid to share a little bit of not only what they do, but maybe there's some business ideas, maybe there's some networking ideas, and start there. And if there's anything that we have started from our photos we've taken to the one pager that Terminator talked about to just reaching out to either of us. I'm speaking for him when I say this too, I realize, but we're more than happy to be a resource to anybody that even if they had some questions about what are some things you wish you knew 2 years ago that you now know, what are things that you feel have worked, what advice would you give to people that want to get an F3B group started for their community, and we're more than welcome to help.
Love it. Well, Tommy Boy is going to probably splice something cool right here at the end, but I will say this because I appreciate it. Thank you, men, for joining us today. Thank you guys for sharing some of the insights, the things that are working in Jack's down there. But this is not, you don't have to have a beach as a backdrop. You can do this anywhere. A parking lot, cafeteria, cup of coffee, just a conversation around a table at the local coffee shop or whatever. It works. And I encourage you guys to roll with it. So thank you, man. I appreciate you being on the call. For the guys who are listening, if you have any questions, we'll link some documents in the show notes. Can we reach out to you guys, Terminator, Mr. Smooth, on the Slack channel, on the Nation Slack channel, if anybody has any further questions?
Absolutely.
All right. You can also go to F3 Jacks on Facebook, Instagram. You can find us there as well. There's some pictures posted there as well as our personal pages. Anything we can do to help, messages, let us know on Slack or social media, and we'll help out.
Perfect. Well, thanks, men. I appreciate you. Thanks for being on. If another man hasn't told you, I love you. The nation loves you. And in the words of Tommy Boy, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, be good or be good at it. You guys take it easy. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having us.